I would love to know where the money is. We don't have it in front of us right now, but
it's just like
how everybody's got to be taking the under still in this, right?
Yeah.
I can't justify even going over 30 in this game.
Yeah, I mean, like, you might get some numbers guys that are like, that total's just too low. Maybe you could get some, especially with sloppy quarterback play, maybe some short fields or some turnovers. Patriots still have somewhat of a defense, right? I mean, they shut down Austin Eckler. He hasn't looked good the last couple of weeks, but they shut down the run game for the Chargers. Really couldn't get anything going in the throw game, even with Justin Herbert. So I keep looking at this like, damn, man, like, I kind of want to back the Patriots, but I could realistically, like, the Steelers don't really have to win by margin. It could be 7-0.
Right.
I mean, like, this Patriots offense, I just don't really want to back.
They really might get shut out 2 weeks in a row.
But selfishly, also, I'm kind of glad this is the Thursday night game. I'm not going to lie. Because I like to be on my couch on Sundays for the good matchups.
I mean,
like Cowboys-Eagles,
yes.
I want the play-by-play broadcast. I want the snacks.
Seahawks, 49ers,
fine. Like,
even Bills, Chiefs.
We got to watch a game on mute and sit in the studio. I'm cool with it being Patriots, Steelers. We'll find something to bet on. Ezekiel Elliott, under rushing yards.
Like, from me, from a matchup perspective, I think Michigan is better off getting Alabama than Texas. And I think Washington is better off getting Texas than Alabama. I think Texas's real concern is in the secondary. It's been lightly tested, but when it's been tested, it's failed. It's outside the top 100 in explosive pass defense. Who has arguably the best passing offense in the country and gets a month off to get healthy and take a breath after the craziest run through the regular season ever? That's Washington, who Texas is playing. So I do wonder if Washington is able to spread out Texas and maybe get some points on the board. I also think late game situation, we saw in the Red River game, Steve Sarkisian kind of choked up a little bit there late in the game. What has Washington been doing? Like, ballsy, epic fourth down calls and, like, no fear and, like, the eye of defeat, like Kalen DeBoer. I want to bet on that guy in a big game. So I like Washington. I honestly think that they're very live to win. I also like the over because I think both teams are going to put up some big points. Rose Bowl, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think I see the case for both sides. I am personally on the Michigan side. I have a future on them from early in the season, so I hope it gets there. I do think, though, that Alabama, of course, has a bunch of edges. I just want to note, 2 weeks ago, they should have lost to Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 weeks ago where this wasn't even debated. Michigan gets the walkover against Florida State. So I know everyone just watched them beat Georgia, but they also played their best game possible. There's also a lot of times where Alabama looked pretty pedestrian. It's really going to come down to, can Michigan stay ahead of schedule and maybe flash a few explosives that they didn't have to show in the Big Ten? Whereas Alabama, it's almost the opposite. Can they be down-to-down successful, which they haven't really been this season, but Milrose kind of bailed them out with the explosive plays, one of the best downfield throwers this entire season. It's almost like opposites. Can Michigan prove that they could stay sustained and throw the ball down the field? And the opposite is Alabama. Can they stay ahead of schedule and not be like third and long against this Michigan team where the defensive line can really pin their ears back? So I lean Michigan.
Reed, we got a couple of minutes here. Yeah,
Sorry.
Well, I mean, where are you on the Florida State getting excluded from the playoff?
Okay. I personally, as a college football purist, I think they got hosed, like 100%. They deserve to get in. I think it's ludicrous that Alabama got in over Florida State. Like, the games have to matter. I know we've said that. Like, it's almost boring at this point talking about it. I understand why they put in Alabama. They truly thought that Alabama, who, I mean, they're a pick'em against Michigan in the Rose Bowl, and another pick'em, or they'll be favored against Washington, or pick'em against Texas, whatever. So I understand they're trying to put the best four teams in right now, but like, what's the point of playing the games, right? Like, to me, as a college football fan, like, the people who come in for the playoff, like the big suits and the corporate people, like, that's not the point. Like, I know they pay the bill, so I guess that's who matters. But like, the college football fan to me is like, Florida State deserves to get in. They should get in. Alabama, you should not lose to Texas at home by double digits, and then you would have gotten in. You know what I'm saying? So I'm already over it, but I do think Florida State, they have like some serious, like, they should be pissed off 100%.
I'm looking at the ACC odds right now. Duke is still the favorite to win it at 2-1. UNC's 3-1. I feel like a lot of that's just Because, like we said, right, we can't really kind of figure out what teams are standing above the rest right now. And Duke and North Carolina, it's like some of it just kind of feels based off of name at this point. Are you in the boat that so many other people are, where you just look at Hubert Davis as a coach and go, I don't see it. I feel like that seems to be the common trend, which is really holding back North Carolina in a lot of ways.
I think this year's group is well assembled to Hubert's credit. I don't think he is an elevator of the talent he has. Like, it's the team. Villanova, I think, same way, right? I think Kyle Neptune is sort of, he's not going to elevate the talent above what it is, but the talent's really good, especially when it's as experienced as it is, right? Like, to have some upperclassmen guys, Baycott, Davis, kind of the bookends there. Harrison Ingram's been the real X factor this year, though. I mean, just a 5-star kid, kind of has a resurrection going out east to Carolina there. So I'm with you on the Hubert Davis skepticism, but I don't think he is like this huge liability of a coach. I think he actually deserves some credit for the way he's handled the assembly of the roster. I mean, just look at last game against Florida State. They were in a huge hole against a white-hot Florida State team. He dials up the pressure. They completely shell-shock the Noles with some full-court havoc. They come back in that game. They go like a 20-0 run. So, I mean, there's signs of him, doing the right things, pushing the right buttons. I mean, even 2 years ago, where they made that incendiary run to the NCAA tournament all the way to the final game, right? I mean, I think there's enough evidence where I'm not all the way selling him, but I'm with you in sort of it's the roster is sort of will operate on its own. I don't know how much I believe in him as like an elevator, I guess.
Look, I'm a Knicks fan. I've suffered a long, long time. What's the upside to this Knicks team, the way it's currently constructed right now, to you?
A feeding ground for a high-end talent to be traded there probably is where that's where you start talking about like the upside. Like this year is currently.
I like that.
This year,
okay.
I personally think that the Knicks may have waited a little too long to push in their chips, because you start to see these other teams begin to enter the fray as like if a superstar was to ask out and say, I want to trade, and the Knicks are on my short list. The other teams are starting to enter the fray where they have a lot of attractive packages. I mean, I'm a Nets fan. The Nets have a lot of attractive picks down the stretch where they could start to put up a formidable offer. I do wonder if the Knicks, there's a fine window if maybe they've kind of missed it where they could really put the right piece around it, because now you've paid RJ Barrett. Julius Randle is a negative asset in terms of the trade market. I just wonder, where are the Knicks putting together like a Godfather offer? Because some of their picks are protected. The team might be too good to really give up their picks. They're still young. They're kind of in this weird in-between stage. As for the Knicks right now, I do think their ceiling was kind of realized last year. Second round, competitive series, maybe break through the conference finals. But like finals contender as currently constructed, no way. As close to zero as you could possibly get.
If you look at their backcourt right now, without Markelle Fultz, they've got 6'5" Jalen Suggs, who's a all-defensive second team, maybe first team candidate. Anthony Black, who's 6'7", and then across the board on the front line, there's 6'10" or 6'11". So positional size and when you put those together with a scheme that everyone understands, you're onto something in the regular season, and I think they are onto something in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Josh, they're sitting second in the Eastern Conference, and I know we got a long, long season to go, and it's dangerous to play the game right now if the playoffs started today. But let's be honest, we do think about those kind of things when we watch a team like the Magic look the way that they look right now. Are they a team that you watch and say, they could kind of stick around in maybe those top 4 spots in the Eastern Conference?
I think they can contend for 6, maybe 5. Mm-hmm. They've got a really, really tough schedule coming up from the middle of this month pretty much through the end of January. A lot of road trips, a lot of tough games against top-level teams. For example, I think they play in Boston in back-to-back games. So they are thinking that if they can just emerge from that stretch somewhere around 500, then they might be able to take off over the final 30 games or so. Which would put them in contention to avoid the play-in. And if they can get to 6, or as you say, even better, well, that would be a tremendous leap for them. A big sign of improvement.
Last night.
Talking to Josh Robbins, BetMGM tonight. You cover the Wizards for The Athletic. I've spent years covering that team myself here, doing God's work, having to deal with some of the awfulness of that team. It feels like almost game after game. They just don't play any defense. They're near and dear to my heart, Josh, but it's so frustrating, even though we know it's a full rebuild with that team. We joke a lot on this show about not betting on the Wizards because Ryan does it on a regular basis. But I feel like every single game, like you go in, nobody's going to play any defense. You're taking over in the game. You feel comfortable with it. So, but as this year goes on, I mean, we've got certain players on there that may have some value on the trade market. Could you see the Wizards being a team that maybe a contender tries to poach closer to the deadline to snag somebody like maybe a Kyle Kuzma? I don't know about Jordan Poole right now, but maybe a Kyle Kuzma for somebody that's looking at an extra piece.
Well, I'm certain they're going to try. It's opportunity favors the bold, right? Not my phrase, but it works in this case. Yes, they're going to come circling around the Wizards like vultures ahead of the trade deadline because the Wizards are racing to the bottom and they are working to try to get more draft capital, which is not something they had a ton of when this new front office was hired. So there's no question that teams are going to come sniffing around their players. Kyle Kuzma, tested NBA Finals winner. I'm not saying that's LeBron and Anthony Davis's team, but he played a big role there. Danilo Gallinari, DeLon Wright, Tyus Jones, Landry Shamet. All of those guys are going to get sniffs from other teams. And depending on the quality of the offers, I think that the Wizards may be open for business.
Let's go.